What is a former local Broken Hill person doing back in Broken Hill with a big blue bus? Well, you may ask that question. Belinda Adams is back in town and she's in a big blue bus wearing a big blue beanie. It's all part of a campaign to raise awareness of brain injuries. It involves a film, it involves a piece of music. Why did she get involved in brain injuries in the first place?
Last year my son was in a car accident and he suffered a brain injury. And throughout that experience, I became aware of the lack of awareness and funding also for people that are needing rehabilitation. So I became very passionate about wanting to raise awareness as well as funds for Synapse, who are helping the people living in the community with acquired brain injury.
What sort of issues are had? I mean, is it a matter of appropriate placement? Is it a matter of funding? Is it a matter of awareness? What are the serious issues?
I think all of those, especially the funding at a government level. In Queensland, there's 26 beds in the rehab centre, so most people don't receive rehabilitation. Or if they do, they have to wait. There's a long wait to get that help, and the first 6 months is the most optimal time to receive that rehab, and it affects, the long-term prognosis for them and the level of their recovery.
So what did it actually mean in practice? Was it a matter of not getting sort of therapy and those kinds of things during that first 6 months? Is that what's important?
Yes. The earlier they get it, the better chance they have of making a full recovery, and that time in between, you're kind of stuck waiting to get a bed and you're not really needing to be in that high care needs ward that you're in, like the neuro ward, which is where you come from. So they've sort of progressed from needing to be there, but there's nowhere to put you in between. So I know in my case, Dylan was at times moved around the hospital because there was nowhere to put him. He didn't need to be in the neuro ward, but they didn't have a bed in rehab yet.
Was a home an alternative, or in this situation it's just not an alternative?
You couldn't take him home. If I took him home, he would then be no longer a patient, so he wouldn't get to go to rehab. And there was no private facilities either, so it wasn't an option. And at that point, he wasn't ready to come home. He was still not recovered enough that he could have come home.
So in the end, I mean, are you satisfied that you've got the result that you needed, or you think you're still lacking in some of the things that you could have done for your son?
I think my son's one of the lucky ones, but I think I had a lot of people giving me awareness, which is what I'm trying to now pass on to others, because I think if I didn't have those people in my life who were giving me information to dig deeper or to fight harder, then I think if you found yourself in the system without someone to be your eyes and ears and you have a brain injury, then you aren't going to have a very good chance of a full recovery or the best recovery possible.
So what's Dylan's prognosis now?
Dylan's doing really well now. He's returned to work and he's progressed quite well. Yep, he's doing really, really well, and we've had amazing support from everyone, both in Brisbane and in Broken Hill. We've been very, very lucky and blessed.
Presumably you've seen the other side of it as well, however.
Yes.
What sort of things happen? I mean, what are the results if people don't get the kind of attention, particularly in that first 6 months, that they need?
Well, I know there was a man in the hospital when we were there, and he didn't have any family, and they didn't have anywhere to send him. So he just seemed to decline more mentally, I think, because it's a long process, and when there's no hope of wanting to move on to the next stage, which with Dylan, we were constantly telling him, you're going to go to rehab and then you're going to go home, and it's a bit of a process, and he was always sort of having that, just to have that person there and the family around you to keep your spirits up makes a huge difference. And if you don't have that, you're definitely not going to make the same level of recovery, I think.
So at what point did you decide that I'm doing this work for my son? At what point did you decide I need to do this for other people?
Well, I think last year, we did try to raise awareness last year, another mother and I, and we went to the Health Minister's office and had a meeting, and just knowing that it is a funding issue, and there are a lot of other health issues that need funding as well. And I think just this year I thought I knew the election was coming up, and well, I know they were funding a floating walkway in Brisbane, which to me I think will put that towards rehabilitation. Health is so much more important than some of the things that I think the money goes to.
So where did the beanie come from?
Synapse have, that's their campaign. So their campaign they run during Brain Injury Awareness Week to bang on a beanie. And that side of it for us was just really wanting to spread the awareness within the community so that it's not such an invisible illness and something that people feel they can't talk about. And I think a lot of people do for fear of judgment. And in my experience, I've had, like I said, had amazing support. Most people don't want to judge you. They want to support you. So you should be able to feel open about talking about it. When you have a brain injury, especially, you don't have an insight into what your deficits are. And I know in my son's case, he does think that himself, that he will say, ask me questions sometimes because he understands on some level that he doesn't understand what is different, if that makes sense.
But and you think maybe other people don't, that people don't understand what it is to have that brain injury and therefore don't know how to tread carefully around a person who does? Is that part of the problem?
I think that there most definitely is not awareness of, even the fact that, they can't drink alcohol for 2 years, and it's like I know with some of the youth, and if you didn't know, it's a cognitive thing, so it's not something that most people might even see the differences, or that there is still recovery and that you have to be careful and look after your health. So yeah, definitely I don't think, unless you've lived that, and I definitely had no awareness myself before my own experience.
Where did you come up with the idea then of a song?
First of all, I wrote a script, and a lot of that was happening whilst Dylan was in hospital, and it was kind of an escape for me. And a lot of that was about following your dreams and not living in fear. And we wanted to have music, because music is such a huge part of everyone's life. And I know even with Dylan, when he was in a coma, we played him his favourite songs, and it's something that really, I think we all mark occasions throughout our lives with music, and it reaches you. So we wanted to have music be a big part of the story. So we decided to have an original soundtrack, and Menindee Sky is the first song off the soundtrack, which is of course written about Menindee, a place that's very special to me. And really just throughout the last couple of years, it's been a place that I went to escape and just have, a bit of a respite when I needed to. The stars are just so beautiful, and the water, just the colours of the landscape are just amazing and nothing like you see anywhere else. And I just fell in love with the place.